Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Well, thank you, John. Just want to make it clear that anything you wish to discuss, the lines are always wide open. Be glad to talk with any of you or take your texts or emails or whatever it is you do. But we just seem to be, leapfrogging from one crisis to another. I just thought that maybe for a change of pace, maybe because it's Monday, maybe just because we're all, I think, getting awfully tired of this. The COVID, every time we turn around, seems to be another challenge. So I'm going to try something a little bit different. Now, I have some other topics. It's entirely up to you. But I thought that, as I say, that we might try doing something a little bit, maybe to take some of the pressure off. And what gave me the idea was talking with my grandkids recently. I began to realize that many of the books and stories and fictional characters that I grew up with, and chances are some of you, are totally foreign to our grandkids and maybe even to our kids. Many of the books that we just, voraciously swallowed as kids and even as teenagers are our grandkids and maybe even our own kids, depending on the age, they just know nothing about. So I'm going to ask you, when you were growing up, is there a book or a story or a character, perhaps? I'm going to stay away from movies for now. Everybody does movies, but is there a book or a story that really grabbed, that you can really remember with great fondness? One of the problems that I see with a lot of kids' literature, young people's literature today, it seems to me it's very dark. Even the Harry Potter series is dark. I mean, compared to a lot of the books that I was reading when I was young. And now, I mean, this new video game that's out now, the Squid Game. I mean, ooh, man, this is really, really dark stuff. And for the life of me, I can't remember, but a couple of years ago, the big series of books or stories that certainly my eldest granddaughter was reading had to do with a game. I forget what the heck they call it. Maybe some of you can help me. But it was terrible. Kids had to kill each other in order to survive or something. But when I was growing up, let me tell you, there is no question, and I invite you to sort of rack your brain and maybe throw back your mind to some happier times, because a lot of us, maybe before television so much or before the video games, that's for sure, a lot of us did spend a lot of time reading, lived in a kind of fantasy world, etc. I know that I did, that's for sure, and I suspect many of you did as well. There's no question that my favorite book of all time, and I'm sure that nobody who is listening here has ever heard of this book or this story. It was called Og, Son of Fire. I must have been about, 10, 11, 12. And I visited the Aurelia Library. Goodness knows how. I must have leased this book or rented this book at least a dozen times. Og, Son of Fire. And interestingly enough, I went to Google, I guess maybe about a year ago, to see if it was still in. I got it back. And it's an interesting story about this young cave boy that discovers fire. And he's captured by a band of apes and so forth. It's pretty interesting reading, and it's very hopeful because he discovers fire and thus changes the course of mankind. So that there's no question. What are some of your favorite books? Black Beauty. Did any of you ever read Black Beauty? One of the things about some of the books that I read, and this, by the way, includes Lassie Come Home and My Friend Flicka. I don't know how many of you ever read My Friend Flicka, but among other things, I think they helped us have more empathy towards animals. You'd be very hard pressed to read Black Beauty without feeling a lot of, as I say, empathy for animals. Black Beauty, of course, that affected human speech and human thought and so forth. And so did Flicka. And Lassie Come Home was a great, wonderful story. But you couldn't come away with really liking and feeling for animals. You wanted to care for animals, certainly after reading Black Beauty. Um, another of my favorites, and I think John, you told me that you read this one as well. Tom Sawyer.
Oh yeah.
I fell in love with Becky Thatcher for at least 2 or 3 years. Becky Thatcher was Tom's great affection there. For some reason, I love Mark Twain and but for some reason, I wasn't as crazy about some of the other books. But Tom Sawyer, what a great story for boys. It just seems a shame that today, I don't suppose any young people today have ever read Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn. I didn't enjoy Huckleberry Finn as much, but a lot of young people I think did. Um, Gulliver's Travels. Now, John, you tell me that you read Gulliver's Travels.
Long time ago I did.
And yet,
Yes,
you
I
know what? If
loved
you were
it.
able to talk about Gulliver's Travels today with young people or even older people, they would have no idea what you're talking about. Let me ask you this. My memory is a little hazy here. Was it was it in Gulliver's Travels that he ran across the Lullaput people, the little miniature people, and he woke up and he was captured by hundreds of these people and put cords around him? I think that was part of Gulliver's
I think
Travels.
so too. Yeah, there was
Yeah,
certainly a giant in that story, right?
yeah, he
So,
was the
yeah.
giant to them.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes, yes.
And Swiss Family Robinson. Now, you never read Swiss Family Robinson? That
Didn't
was a
have
great
didn't
story.
have to. I saw the movie.
That doesn't count.
Hey, that's how I got through school, is watching the movie.
Swiss, Swiss Family Robinson. What a great story of survival. And not only that, as you recall, he befriended a person, his man, good man Friday. A little bit about race relations there, I think, maybe without us realizing it. Friday saved his life on more than one occasion. Um, there's another book that nobody has ever read other than me, I am sure. And I tried to, excuse me, tried to get it back. I couldn't get it. It's called Rink Rat. It was about this kid that grew up at a hockey rink, and he sort of did all of the Joe jobs around the rink, and he finally developed into a real great hockey player himself. But somehow or other, he fell. The fans didn't like him, so it was a great story. The Rink Rat. If you ever see that book, please send it to me. Be glad to pay the transportation. Um, cartoons. I
Oh,
had a
okay. Here we
well,
go.
who was you like the
I like the
what
lighter side, right? So it was Archie comics for me. It was the Jetsons, the Flintstones were. I mean, every lunch hour for me was the Flintstones.
but let's be honest, the Archie comics, some of the young women there were um for teenage boys, there was a slight arousal factor, I would say. Would you not? They
Maybe.
they were always rather well apportioned, as I recall. Archie comments. But my favorite cartoon character, nobody's ever heard of this guy. Ozark Ike. Excuse me, my throat again.
Hmm.
Ozark Ike.
Not
This
familiar.
guy, this guy played professional sports, every sport there was. He just trampled over linemen, you know, carrying footballs to touchdowns, and he was a wonderful baseball player. One of the favorite pictures I can recall graphically was the last cartoon section would show a baseball flying right out of the park and the cover coming off. Ozark Ike has just hit another home run.
Fantastic.
Uh, yeah. Um, as I say, kids today have no idea what we're talking about. Folks, are we getting any response on this at all, John?
Huge
Oh, great.
response.
Oh, great.
By the way, the one that just when you started the conversation, you talked about one that was rather dark that your grandkids would get into, Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. That's
Yeah,
the one.
yeah.
You know what? My eldest granddaughter, and I love her deeply, and she's very bright, and she's doing very well now. Congratulations to her. But for at least 2 or 3 years in high school, and not only, I think the high school assigned that book to her. but that's all she was reading was this. And I said, Sam, this is terribly dark stuff. Well, that's what they were reading.
Yeah.
And when I tried to say, when our grandkids were really young, and I have to credit Debbie with this, she brought them Mother Goose stories, and the kids, as little kids, little boys and little girls, 4 and 5, on our knee, they love the Mother Goose stories. But you'd be hard pressed, I think, to find a Mother Goose book today on the bookstores. I may be wrong, but it seems some of those stories were just wonderful. And you know what? There were life stories. There were strong. I mean, the ugly duckling, for example. One good example. There were a lot of those stories. And do you remember any of the Aesop fables? Reading any of those? The dog in the manger and the trolls underneath the bridge. You ever read any of those, John? You don't. You
None of those are
no.
familiar.
You had a
No.
deprived childhood. I'm
I
afraid.
really did. Yes.
uh, another book that I remember with great fondness, are really really exciting. And by the way, later I did see the movie Last of the Mohicans.
There you go.
James Fenimore Cooper. Remember that? That was a
Yeah.
great one. Uncle Tom's Cabin, and one of my broadcast heroes throughout my younger years, in fact, even today, was Gordon Sinclair. He was a broadcaster, CFRB,
Yep.
but he also authored a number of books, including some books on travel. He for some reason or other, he really brought travel to right. You could almost live with him as he was traveling to some of these exotic places. And one of the highlights of my life, and I've told this story before, and I'm going to tell it again. I went to work to CFRB back in the 90s, and the news doing talk, and they gave me a little office, and there in the office is a typewriter, and scratched into the top of the typewriter is Gordon Sinclair. I had Gordon Sinclair's old typewriter, and I used it with pride. I thought maybe I might steal it and bring it home, but then I decided I'd better not. Barry is on the line. Barry, what's your comment here?
Well, Lowell, I was going to say I've done a lot of reading over my life, but not as much lately in my older years. But
Yeah.
A series I had as a kid, I was lucky enough that my father, being a high school teacher, he ordered a lot of textbooks and stuff like that for his department in his school when he was department head.
Right.
And he ordered a lot of books through National News. So lots of times on Saturdays, he got to know this woman on the order desk at National News, and she always worked on Saturdays. And we'd go down there, and he'd look through all the Luke Short and Louis L'Amour westerns, and I got hooked on. I got hooked on a series by an author named Kenneth Robeson called Doc Savage,
Okay.
which was an old serial type. I don't know if it was ever on radio shows, but the Doc Savage series by Kenneth Robeson I found really good. It was about this guy that had sort of like a private investigation service in New York, and he had fun.
Now the other, yeah, Barry. We don't have a whole lot of time. That's interesting. There was a very famous Western writer who wrote all kinds of. What was the name of the one that you just gave me?
Luke Short or
Luke Short.
Louis L'Amour. Louis L'Amour's books are really good reading.
Are they?
Yeah, they're really good stories. Another one I was going to recommend to you, Lowell, that I read that my father had, and it's about this old cowboy and this young guy that are herding cows and working as ranch hands down in Montana or something like that. And they hear a story through native people about this huge area of grass up in northern BC. So the two of them go off on an adventure to northern BC to see if they can find this grass and maybe start their own ranch and their own herd. And the name of the book is called Grass Beyond the Mountains. And I would highly recommend it. It's a really good story.
Was that where they talked? Were they looking for the Peace River area? Because there, for a while, it was a target of a lot of settlement. Peace River. I have to move on.
I believe it was somewhere north of Prince George or something. But CBC actually tried to turn the story into a TV show about those two guys
Right.
in a town in BC. But
Barry, I'm sorry. We have to. I wish we had more time, but I can't go into every plot on every. But I'm just interested to know that you enjoyed reading as a kid. Thank you so much. I have to get it. Sorry, folks, to rush Barry. Shields. Uh, I've got to talk about Shields again because I still keep hearing people say, "Well, I think I'm going to get better prices at a big box store. Bad Boy is in town now, etc., etc." Well, I've done some checking, and I'm going to tell you, if you look very closely, you're going to see that in many instances, not only are Shields prices comparable to anything you're going to get big box stores, but in some cases better. They have some tremendous sales, up to $800, for example, off on some appliances. Shields.ca. Folks, they have a huge warehouse. You won't have to wait a long period of time. You're dealing with good people, honest people. When they say they're going to deliver at a time, that's when they'll be there. Prices, very, very competitive. You'll be surprised. Check them out, shields.ca. John, some text coming in?
Yeah, and we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Twitch, we're on YouTube as well. So whatever platform you're watching us on, post your comments there, and we'll drag them over to the screen. I'm working kind of backwards here, Lowell, but here we go. Kevin says,
Sure.
I remember the Hardy Boys book set as a kid. I was talking about that just before we went on the air.
Yeah.
Had them all. It was popular at my school, he says, as a young lad. Let me see. I had Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, says Nina. As far as cartoons...
Wait a minute, hold on, just a minute now.
Yo.
Nina, did you not read the Bobbsey Twins? Now, the Bobbsey Twins
that came up a few minutes ago. Yeah, that's somebody mentioned that. Yeah,
the Bobbsey Twins was designed for girls, but I found their adventures really exciting as well. That's another series of books, the Bobbsey Twins, that I bet you can't find today. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Here's an email from our friend Rob in Carlton Place. He says, when I was 8 or 9, my mother bought me every Hardy Boys book. I read them over and over. But the book that had the most memorable effect on me was Where the Red Fern Grows. Such a heart-wrenching ending when you are a young boy. That's Rob in Carlton Place.
Never heard of that one.
Nor have I. Cheryl, when it comes to cartoons, says definitely the Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote, the Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, Tom and Jerry, Bugs Bunny, and Yosemite Sam. Right on, Cheryl. I think Cheryl and I grew up in the same house. Christine says she's got several versions of Aesop's Fables and read some of the stories to her boys every now and then. I was also surprised to see the Hunger Games series listed as a juvenile/teen read. These are ancient books and movies, Lowell. Good, but, says Michelle. Moby Dick is a favorite of Mike's. Let me see. To Kill a Mockingbird is no longer taught at our school, says Kelly, but that was brought up by someone. It might have been you that brought that up.
What a shame that is, eh?
Yep.
These are the, I don't know, the do-gooders. They think that somehow or other, I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird is one of the most important books ever written. It was one of those books, I think, that you could say helped to change the world. Uncle Tom's Cabin, Grapes of Wrath, To Kill a Mockingbird. They helped change society. They helped change the world. And to think that books of that quality, of that importance, would be banned in any school, it's a crime. It's a bloody crime. Go ahead, John.
I mean, it's about learning, right? And books like that lead to conversations. And
well, but these are important books. They help to. My father taught a course called Books That Change the World, and chief among them was To Kill a Mockingbird,
sure,
Grapes of Wrath, Uncle Tom's Cabin. These are books that changed or helped to change public opinion in very major ways, and thus, if you change public opinion, you change the world. Go ahead, John.
Joshua says, I can say personally for me, school damaged my love of reading for a time by trying to control what I read. We had reading time. Teacher said we could read anything we wanted, but I wasn't allowed to read the Reader's Digest, among other things. Some of my best jokes on the air, Joshua. Reader's Digest built my radio career. Let me see. Doo-Doo the Kid from Outer Space, says Donald. I haven't heard of that one.
Can I ask something else? One of the books that fascinated me while growing up, and a lot of young guys, was Popular Mechanics.
Yes.
Do you remember Popular Mechanics?
Yes.
Yeah. And someone suggested that the author of Western novels that I couldn't remember was Zane Grey. You're right. Zane Grey had a whole series of really great Western novels. Go ahead, John.
Tale of Two Cities, no longer in schools. Another one being brought up in our chat right here. Let me see. We've got Read Where the Red Fern Grows if you need a big, ugly cry. Mike also says Where the Red Fern Grows was a Western, I believe. He's seen the movie. Babysitter's Club is being suggested by Jules. The Bobbsey Twins books comes up again. Kath saying that she loves that one. Louis Lamar wrote so many books. Most, when I started reading, it would be so hard to put down. I would read from start to finish, says Murray. Nina, I belong to the Scholastic Book Club. Yes. Oh my gosh, the book club was fantastic. So I was able to get many books cheaply. Yeah, that was a deal. I mean, we all had the record club, etc., where we could get 10 tapes for $1.
Right.
The Scholastic Book Club was much the same thing. You get a different book every single month. That was fantastic. I'd forgotten about that. Bugs Bunny, my favorite actor. After all, he's an Oscar-winning actor, right? Says Terry. Okay, thank you, Terry. Let me see. Hey,
Nobody read Black Beauty. To me, like
Black Beauty's not coming up. No, I read it.
Excuse me. Oh man, they see some of these books, and I think Black Beauty is in that category. I think they help to change public attitude. I don't think you could read Black Beauty without coming away with much greater empathy for animals of all kinds. I really don't. And my feeling is that anything that helps to change human nature or affects human nature in any way, I mean, most of this stuff is just dribble, particularly today, doesn't do anything, right? You don't remember. I mean, I watch a movie sometimes on Netflix. Somebody asked me the next day, what the hell? I can't remember anything. But books like that, you remember forever. They have an effect on you. As I say, you could not read Black Beauty and My Friend Flicka without having greater empathy for animals, which is only a good thing because you have greater empathy for animals. I feel
Sure.
that you have more empathy for humans as well. Go ahead, John.
Could not agree more. Nancy says Old Yeller.
Old Yeller, you talk
Yeah.
about a tearjerker. That's right. Yeah, very true. How about Bambi?
Saw
Bambi,
the movie.
yeah, you saw the movie. That was talking about scary movies. I remember as a kid being scared by Bambi. Remember
Really?
the forest fire and
Yeah.
the deer was at the father is in the river. Oh my God, that's scary stuff for kids. Go ahead, John. I have a couple of other topics here, but we seem to be.
Charlotte's Web was the one for me that made me cry and got me very, very upset. To this day, I have no idea why because I haven't watched it since. But my mother was so afraid of my emotional state after watching that, she wouldn't let
Really,
me go see movies at all. Yeah,
really.
I guess the spider dies or something, and I was also. Anyway, Of Mice and Men has been brought up by Chrissy, another classic. Let me see.
Mice and Men, boy, you talk about dark and ooh.
Yeah.
The other, one of the things when we're talking about books, I don't know, and maybe some of you can help me here, if they are still teaching Orwell 1984 in school.
Ooh, yes.
I think that my feeling is that Orwell, particularly 1984, should only be taught in university. I just don't think even the high school mind can properly compartmentalize that. And can really understand
I had
what
that in high school.
Yeah, I just think that's a mistake. I think that books of that nature, I think, are far better. They should be, I believe anyway, taught only in university. Kids a little bit older, better able to handle and understand what they're read. Anyway, that's just my thoughts here. Go ahead, John.
Angela says everyone should read Beautiful Joe. Nina says, yes, I read Black Beauty. My friend Fleeka, the Black Stallion.
Black Flicka, yes. My friend Flicka.
Flicka. What did I say? Fleeka?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should read more. I would understand that.
And how about Lassie Come Home? That was a great one, too. Did you read Lassie Come Home? No, you saw the movie, right?
I saw the TV show. Or was that Littlest Hobo? Might have
let
been
me
Littlest
ask.
Hobo.
Let me ask you this, John. Did you have a favorite cartoon character that you emulate, that you fantasized about?
That I fantasized about?
Yeah, for me, I was Robin, a Batman and Robin. I was Robin for about 3 years. Okay, I would pretend, I'd pretend to be Robin, and in my fantasy world, which was fairly rich, I was rescuing people and so forth as Robin. I didn't need Batman. Robin was all I needed.
Yeah, no. I mean, I certainly had a thing for Catwoman. But that wasn't. I wasn't trying to be her.
You're a bad boy here.
I am, absolutely, but this is not news to you. The Last of the Mohicans is a great book, according to Lori.
Yes.
Cheryl's asking if anybody remembers Paddington Bear. Those are great kids' books.
Yes.
Dylan emulated Spider-Man. That was his go-to.
Anybody remember Plastic Man? It came out in Plastic Man. It came out in I would say the early 40s in comic book form. And by the way, I have one more comment. I never understood why schools didn't allow kids to read comic books in class. It seemed to me like a lot of kids, they didn't like reading. Some of the reason that people have talked about it is some of the reading material was terrible that we had to read. It was stupid. It had no interest to kids at all. But all the kids loved comic books. It seems to me that the intent of school, the early years, is to get kids to love reading. And if they love reading, I could never understand, why can't I read a comic book?
Yep.
It's reading. I'm learning the words. I'm on and all that. Oh no! But anyway, go ahead, John.
No, you're absolutely right, and that was me in school too. I was one of those creative minds, and a comic book would have been my go-to. Had they encouraged me to read the comic books, I most likely would have gotten into other things.
No question.
Yeah, that was question. That was my starting point. Let me start there.
Let me just tell you a little story. I know we're running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
This is grade 10, I guess. Maybe grade 9, I don't know. And an English teacher, this is in Brantford, Ontario, English teacher, and he reads, the book that he is reading is, oh my God, my mind is gone now. Anyhow, go ahead. Sorry, John.
Because you're focused on Catwoman, aren't you?
Something like that.
On YouTube, CJ says, anybody read Shakespeare? I did in high school. CJ, yes, I did. Okay, and this is completely unrehearsed. Oh, pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth, that I am meek and gentle with these butchers. Thou art the ruins of the noblest man that ever lived in the tide of times. Woe to the hand that shed this costly blood. Antony's soliloquy from Julius Caesar, and I know that because my English teacher told me I would pass her class if I could memorize 12 out of the 20 lines. And to this day, I still know every damn word.
Yeah, let me ask the question. What the hell does it mean?
Listen, that's neither here nor there, Lowell. I got out of English class. I got to move on. And then I got to teach her son when I was teaching in the Algonquin College radio program, which was hilarious.
Okay. Excuse me. Any more, John? My throat's coming out here.
Yep, Archie and Jughead, the best comics going. Raccoons on Ice. Now, that was awesome as a kid. People saying they're loving this conversation. They're really, really enjoying the nostalgia of it all. Joshua says, I don't know, Lowell. I think books like 1984 can be taught at more than one school level. Then it's interesting to see how one's interpretation juxtaposes. My favorite cartoon, says Nina, was Gumby. You want in there? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it just seems to me that 1984 is so deep that I don't think that the average high school mind, as I call it, is able to comprehend, to really understand what he was talking about, the warning that he was issuing. I just don't feel, I feel that books of that nature are so deep and so important that I think that these should be taught at least the university level. That's just one man's opinion here. Go ahead, John.
One final comment. We'll go to the phone for this one, 613-413-2217. Bruce texts to say, hi, Lowell and John. I read virtually all the books you've been mentioning, comic books too. Remember Lil Abner by Al Cap?
Oh, yes.
There you go.
I remember Little Abner very well because it was the play Little Abner during which I met my first wife.
Oh.
She was Daisy May and I was Roof in the chorus, and we had 17 years of reasonably happy marriage and 2 children. So, in fact, I have the front cover of the brochure from Little Abner. It's up on my wall. Little Abner.
I really need to spend some time. I've been in your office doing all kinds of tech work. I've never once taken time to really appreciate all the things that are on your wall. You've got.
It's a typical day in Dogpatch, USA. Thank you all. We'll be back tomorrow, I guess. Right?
I guess.
Today? What's today, Monday or Tuesday? Monday.
Today, let's call it Monday.
We'll be back tomorrow, which probably will be Tuesday. Thank you all.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green Podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green Podcast. This is a production of BlastTheRadio.com.